Hello everybody, this is a letter supposedly sent by a whistleblower within the insurance industry, the car insurance industry in Germany. It was already being featured on a couple of YouTube channels, but they did little more than read out the letter, and I was quite interested to do some analysis and research into the veracity and the implications that this might have for people like us who are passionate about classic cars. As such, I'm not reading the letter word for word. I have taken some particular extracts and I will include the whole letter in the first comment of this video. The letter starts, I work in the IT department of a large insurance company headquartered in Germany. And many people don't see or understand what will happen to us with this great digitization revolution, especially the possible dangers. Here is an excerpt of the pilot projects that we are working on, starting with the digitized car. Pilot projects are apparently already underway. In the next 10 years, it will no longer be possible to insure old cars. So basically what he's saying here is that you will be forced to buy a digitized car because it won't be possible to get insurance on older cars that aren't connected to the network. And he expands further. These cars are online 24/7 and in touch with the insurance, traffic authorities, remote maintenance, etc. Depending on your driving style, the time, the speed that you're going, your insurance premium will automatically adjust. If you drive too quickly, if you're too risky, you don't only pay a fine to a magistrate, but your insurance premium also automatically increases. If you drive at night, you get a higher premium. If you have more passengers, higher premium. Now, I'm just going to stop here and come out for a second and just consider what's being said, because I can understand to an extent why an insurance company would want to do this. But at the same time, I can't see how insurance companies would also willingly want to cut out a huge revenue stream, and that is that of classic car owners or people who don't have, at the moment, interconnected cars. What I can see though, which is, to be quite honest, equally worrying, is that insurance companies might start to charge those of us who don't have a connected car, including classic car owners, a higher premium because they are unable to get the same amount of information as they are from cars that are connected. He goes on to say, we're already in discussions with several major automotive brands to bring a Europe-wide technical one-size-fits-all solution onto the market. Many people don't know that fully integrated breathalyzers will be mandatory in the coming vehicle generations. This means that if you're drunk, you will no longer be able to start your car. And here I've done a little bit of research because I thought that sounds ridiculous. I'm sure that's not the case, but actually, so there's an article from USA Today in 2021 in which it basically puts forward what was a press release from the National Transportation Safety Board. This is in the USA. And that says that every new car in the US should come with an alcohol detection systems that would prevent owners from driving their cars when drunk. The agency released a report citing the need for automakers in the US to install passive monitoring systems which could be available as early as 2026. So that was in the USA, but even over here, I found a press release from 2019 from the RAC, which is a British Motoring Association, saying that the European Council had made a decision that from 2022, breathalyzers must be able to be fitted to all new cars that could prevent drink drivers from starting their engines. Now, this was apparently rubber stamped in 2019. It should already be in effect, but I know that not all new cars, or I haven't seen any, that come with breathalyzers. I think the key here is that it says they must be able to be fitted to all new cars. So I don't think they're going to be mandatory at this stage, but all the same, it is quite worrying that it is there. Now, Generally speaking, it's hard for me to argue that this would necessarily in itself be a bad thing. So if you go to your car drunk, that you shouldn't be able to start it, I can't really say I've got a problem with that. But our source goes on to say, even if you are below the minimum alcohol limit, this data will be passed on to the insurance company and you will be penalised with a higher premium. If you are drunk beyond this limit, the relevant authorities will automatically be informed and your insurance will be cancelled immediately. So I have to say that this really does smack of George Orwell. So have a breathalyzer in the car. I don't love the idea, but I find it hard to argue against it logically. But it doesn't need to be interconnected. The only purpose of having a breathalyzer in there is to stop people who are drunk from driving. There's another section that he goes on to talk about, which is really, really interesting, and that is of security. He says that there is already scheduled a pilot project for 2025. This is cooperation with the Federal Ministry of Defense, National Security, so this will be in Germany. It says if a vehicle is registered to a politically exposed person and there is a suspected case, this person will no longer be able to start their vehicle. It will be deactivated via remote monitoring. So first of all, I want to say that the language is a little bit suspect here because he says if someone is politically exposed, which kind of shows a little bit of bias into what he's thinking. Why not say if he's criminally exposed? So it could be someone who's suspected or known to have committed a crime or is about to commit a crime and so his car is disabled. I'm not saying I'm for it, but it would sound a little bit more balanced as a report rather than saying someone politically exposed, which is already kind of tipping you into thinking if it's someone who has the wrong political ideas, their car will be disabled. I don't think that's what's being said here. Doesn't mean though that it still doesn't sound quite dystopian. And I was surprised to find online, openly available, something that actually backs up this claim. So Thales, which is, I think it's a French Anglo or French defense company, has published a white paper, so that's a research paper, called Digital IT in Automotive, Concepts and Use Cases. In this paper, we will review the concepts of digital IDs, authentication and permissions in the automotive market through 3 concrete examples. The digitization of the key to open and to start the engine. The electric vehicle charging subscription, not that interested in that. And then peer-to-peer communication between cars and related infrastructure, which is quite key. Our friend goes on to say, a powerful RFID chip will be built into these digital ID cards. This enables close coupling of 10 meters, but monitoring localization with an accuracy of approximately 1,000 meters. Now again, I think this is the German language here, but I think he's saying that if you're 10 meters, if the cars are 10 meters to each other, they can connect up and give a precise location, but otherwise, even remotely, they will know where you are to within 1,000 meters. I think it would be more accurate than that, but anyway. This is a particular interest in insurance company because in the event of damage, we can more easily locate the people, acts of damage, crimes of those involved. And we're already in negotiations with the European Digitization and Data Protection Managers to also be able to access this data in more detail, justified under the name of security, customer friendliness and digitization. Now, of course, insurance companies are always going to be searching for as much data as possible so that they can put together the most effective data risk assessment of their clients. But there has to be a bit of a limit on how far they can intrude into our lives to do so. There's also what he calls a side note here, which is in the coming years, owners of electric cars will have to be prepared to pay battery tax instead of an engine tax. Well, I have absolutely no problem with that. What's the issue? We have to pay car tax now. There was absolutely no way that just because you had an electric car, you weren't going to be paying any tax. One way or the other, if it's the size of the battery or how much you're using it, there will be tax on that. But, again, this one is key. Our whistleblower goes on to say, already in our insurance for autopilots. Here, the higher your insurance amount and the safer your autopilot will act. Don't be under any illusions that the autopilot will act the same in all vehicles in the event of an accident. At every point in time, we know who, when, how, why is in the car. Now, this one's a bit weird. I don't understand why an autopilot would act differently depending on how much insurance you pay or the implications of that. But there is something really interesting about this paragraph, and that is that at all times they will know how, why, who is in the car. And I remember reading recently that a lot of modern cars have cameras installed, so I wanted to do a bit of research to see, are passengers actually filmed? And the main source of data I found was from Tesla. They definitely have cabin cameras, I think Volvos do as well, that monitor what the passengers in the car is doing, which again is super scary. But there is a reason for it, and that is that with the autopilot, that data is needed to determine driver inattentiveness and provide them with audible alerts to remind you to keep your eyes on the road when the autopilot is on. Tesla goes on further to say that none of this data is shared, it's only processed within the car. But they also say that that video data only leaves from the cabin camera, only leaves the car in the event of a safety concern, in the event of a safety concern event. Otherwise, the data is not saved to onboard memory and is not transmitted to anyone, including us. But all the same, it is possible to get, that means it is possible to get cabin data if you're driving a Tesla, possibly other cars, in the event that something happens. Again, a bit scary. Now, there's two things that I want to close on here. The first thing is, I think we need to determine is this letter actually real? It was originally sent to a German YouTuber who I think is a survivalist and whose attitude is quite libertarian in these things. I think she's quite open to this kind of thing. For that reason, I was initially quite skeptical, but I have to say that the information that I found and that I briefly mentioned here does kind of tally up with what's being said. The second point is that whether this is true or not, the interconnected nature of modern cars is a worry, because it could have implications for those of us that like to keep older cars, and we're already going to have issues, I think, in future finding readily available cheap fuel, that kind of stuff. If insurance becomes harder as well, that is not good. And lastly, I do want to say, I don't think, even if all this is true, I don't think this is a sort of a conjoined effort from government necessarily to control us. I think this is a very undesirable consequence of commercial imperatives and technology joining up. But whatever the reason, it is really quite worrying. And I would be, I'd be interested to hear what you think about all this, specifically geared towards those of us that really like and enjoy our classic cars. It seems that not just this, but that there are ever increasing pressures on us to stop enjoying these cars. There's also the fact that people are talking about safety, that they're unsafe because of the crash structures, that they're talking about the fact that they pollute more than modern cars. So I don't know, it's not looking good. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you found this interesting and enjoyed it, and do tell me what you think. See you for the next video.